Welcome to today's episode of Wealthy Living Conversations. I'm Lisa, your host and founder of Wealthy Living. As an integrated life, clarity and wellbeing coach and a professional conversation facilitator, it is here that I connect with a variety of wonderful humans to have inspiring and insightful conversations to help you live a well and connected life. A place to learn and grow in confidence and clarity to make choices that support your well-being, both personally and professionally. So we're living in a time through history, which is making history with the COVID-19. And it's a time where we really have to have a really strong immune system. It becomes a really big priority. So today I thought I'd bring on a guest to talk a little bit about the immune system and a different approach and a different way of tackling it, not necessarily just by the traditional medicine that we hear of. So I've got a special guest. She is a doctor of Chinese medicine, Leela Klein, to chat with me about Chinese medicine and the ways that it can support your immunity. So Dr. Leela Klein works across many health issues, but she has a special interest in psycho-emotional issues such as anxiety and depression, which is very pertinent in today's society in general, but particularly now that we're going through the current global pandemic. So Leela has grown up in Western countries. So, she's, namely Australia, Germany and London, and she studied broadcasting and worked in the TV industry. And now she's practicing Chinese medicine. So I want to chat a little bit about how Leela got to that place. So welcome, Leela.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
We're good. It's so good to have you on here. And it's really interesting because you've come from such a completely different field.
I have, yes.
And ended up in Chinese medicine, which is like an incredible amount of study and something that's completely different to the culture that you've grown up in. So can you just tell the listeners a little bit about how you've got to this place?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And yeah, my journey with Chinese medicine started in London many, many, many years ago. I was working, like you said, in television industry. And I just got to a place where I was climbing up, the career ladder and just found myself in a place where I just thought, like, I don't want to continue my life as it is. Work was taking over. I didn't really have a social life anymore. And I was looking especially at the women, like in my field of work. And I just didn't see anybody very inspiring and healthy. And so I just decided for myself, I needed to find something else. And in classic fashion, I went to India and found myself, and I found a new way of being. As soon as I returned from my trip to India, I moved from London to Brighton and I studied shiatsu. And shiatsu it's based on Chinese medicine originally, but somebody took it from China to Japan and called it shiatsu, and it's like massage that is fully closed on a futon, but it has the same kind of diagnosis principles as acupuncture. And the first time I experienced shiatsu, it was just like a light bulb going off in my head. It was like a feeling of returning home, something I innately knew within me, and it just made so much sense to me. So I studied shiatsu, did a postgraduate, and then continued my Chinese medicine studies from there. And now I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, what an amazing pathway, and to have the courage to actually pivot and change directions. And I think that's something in these times right now that a lot of people are having to do in their own careers because they're stuck at home and they're, like you might be able to still treat in your practice at this current time, but a lot of people are having to really pivot their businesses and change maybe, and even think about, their career choices. So I'm wondering, like, with such a pivot in your career, with such courage to, you've climbed that ladder, and it's something that you studied in broadcasting, and it was something that you had an ambition for. And then to know that it was feeling not right for you in your body, and then go to make the move to just, which a lot of people do, or I'm going to take a quick break, go on a holiday to another country, and then to feel it, like you said, within your body, it was just a knowing. But how did you go from the knowing aspect to taking the inspired action to make the choice? Like, what were the biggest challenges that you found doing that? And what's some advice that you could give to maybe someone who is thinking about, like, at this particular time, doing something different that requires a lot of work to do?
For me, I've always listened to my intuition. My intuition is very strong, and it just won't let me do anything else. So I came to a breaking point where, at the time, I was experiencing depression, and I knew that I could not go on with my life as it was in the TV industry. I didn't know where it was going to, and that's why I kind of like did this trip to India, just to have some time out and think about where I wanted to go next. And I just trusted that when I came back to England, that something would happen, and it did. I literally came back to London and received immediately like a call from a production company in Brighton, which was the first step for me to get out of London, get out of that rat race, find a new path. And then as soon as I got to Brighton, I also found the Buddhist center there. I started meditating, and that was for me the biggest change. So if you want to change your life, meditate and follow your intuition. Sometimes it's really hard to sit down every day, but it will change your life. It will just make things that are important to you just really clear. You will have the calmness and the concentration and the peace of mind to make the changes and to find a life that you want to lead, that you're happy with. And I think in this, like now we have the time. Now you can sit at home and meditate for 2 hours a day if you want, instead of having the time that you spend to commute normally. Just, sit on your cushion, sit on a chair if you can't sit on a cushion.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And it's interesting because just not last episode, but the episode before, I was chatting with Karen Slater about that topic of meditation and the value of meditation.
Great.
So yeah, perfect. Nicely played, Leela.
We didn't rehearse this, honest.
So to going back to that, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing your journey, because I think it's a really hard one for people, and that idea of really trusting and really being in tune with your intuition and being still enough to even let it talk to you, and then taking action. And I think it requires, you made it sound really easy, but I think it does require a lot of courage and a lot of determination and dedication, and, to be able to really change that path. But as you've done, and so many others have done, it is possible, and never, people should never give up on that. Because look, like you said, you've come to that place where you couldn't imagine that you've ever done and would ever do anything differently. Yeah,
absolutely. And yes, I do make it sound like it was an easy transition, and it wasn't. Just to clarify, it wasn't. Any transition is difficult, any transformation, because you're letting go of the life that you have, that and you're stepping into the unknown, which is always scary, terrifying, and challenging. But stick with it.
Fantastic. So if we get back to Chinese medicine now, and talk a little bit about that, and what does Chinese, like what is the main things of Chinese medicine? Because we all hear about Chinese medicine. A lot of people don't actually know what it is and how it differs from the philosophy of, say, Western medicine.
Okay. Chinese medicine is one of the oldest medicines in the world, possibly the oldest, but we've got records dating back 2,200 years. and people think that it's, you know, a lot older than that, about 5,000 years. But one of the textbooks, which was written roughly around 200 BCE, is one of the textbooks that we still use today. It's called the Huangdi Neijing, and it's about the Yellow Emperor talking to his chief physician and getting answers from him. And it's a really beautiful text. The main concept with Chinese medicine is the flow of qi. Qi is something that you probably heard about, and it's so difficult to translate. All Chinese medicine people are probably gonna kind of, it's like we always refer to it as energy. It's not, it can't really be translated into energy, or vital energy, but it's kind of the closest words that we have to qi. Qi is everything. Qi is around us, is within us, and it's in every organ. It has different functions depending on where it is. It transforms, it warms, it does so many things. But as long as the qi is flowing, there's no disease. So what we do in Chinese medicine with herbs and acupuncture and cupping and all the other tools that we use is we want to continue the flow of qi, and if there's not enough qi, we want to boost it. If there's too much in an area, we want to reduce it. So we treat every person who comes in very individual. So in Western medicine, the main difference is that people are being diagnosed, they get a diagnosis, say, for example, IBS, everybody gets the same medication, everybody gets the same treatment. That's something that just doesn't exist in Chinese medicine. We look at each person individual, we look at the signs and symptoms you're presenting. So even so, 3 people come in with IBS, I always ask them, but what are your signs and symptoms? How do you present? And I will make an acupuncture protocol and a herbal prescription to go with that individual person. So that's kind of like the main difference, I think.
Okay, so when you talk about the qi being the most vital thing, and that is how you determine sort of your treatment things of whether it's too much or too little. I mean, a qi, if it's a point of energy, to me in my head, and I don't really know a lot about this, but I would say that's quite an invisible thing. So how do you then know if somebody has too much or too little?
You ask them questions. So I will ask lots of questions. I will look at them, just as soon as somebody comes in through the door. What is their facial color? What is their hair like? How are they walking? We look at their eyes, we look at their presentations, just like, what can I see? If somebody comes in with like very pale and fragile, you can instantly see the qi is not very strong here. If somebody comes in like, I was going, okay, that's, a little bit more qi. And so we look at the person, we listen to what they have to say. Smell is involved, it's like I'm not going to my patients and smelling them, but you just observe any smells that you. Then you take the pulse, and the tongue diagnosis. So these all together make up the diagnosis to figure out where's the qi flowing, where is it not, and that's how we come to our diagnosis. And then sometimes, if it's still unclear, we do some palpation as well.
Okay, so in some ways there's some similarities there with Western medicine, because they would look at, things like the colour and whether you're pale, or your throat and the colour of your throat if you've got a sore throat, and, some of those other physical signs as well. So in a lot of ways, some things are very similar. So how do you feel about, and what's your take on the integration between Western medicine and traditional Chinese medicine, and is there an overlap? Can they be used together, or are they just two separate things?
I would absolutely love it if they were used together. I think that would be incredible. And traditional Chinese medicine is used in conjunction with Western medicine in China. So if you go to a hospital in China, you have the choice if you want to be treated with Western medicine or traditional Chinese medicine, saying that there's always an overlap. And what we've seen with Wuhan and the treatment of coronavirus quite recently is that about 80% of all patients were treated in that conjunction. They were treated with Chinese medicine as well as Western medicine and had amazing results. I mean, looking at the numbers of recovered cases in China, it's just incredible. And I think they just really work beautifully together. What Chinese medicine is great is working with prevention of disease, working with chronic conditions. But Chinese medicine is we don't do surgery, so we're not very good at cutting things out. So I think there's definitely a place for both things, and it'd just be great if they could come together and work together. So Western medicine generally gives up with chronic conditions. They just, it's like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Or even things like which it's not a disease, but for example, in women in menopause, there is, if you go to your GP, they will just go, well, you're going through menopause, good luck with the hot flushes, just there's nothing they can do. But with Chinese medicine, acupuncture and Chinese herbs are so amazing for it. So if we could work together and refer to each other and work together, that would be amazing.
Amazing. And I mean, one thing that you did touch on then, which I do want to talk more about in this episode now, is about the COVID-19 and how it was used to treat people in China. So when you say that when someone goes to hospital in China that they get the choice of traditional Chinese medicine or Western medicine, does that mean that that the hospitals are filled with both types of doctors and then they can choose, or how does that actually work?
All doctors as you know, it's just like I haven't been trained in a hospital in China, so I'm not an expert on the subject, but from my understanding is that all doctors in China have an understanding of Western medicine and Chinese medicine, so they've been trained in both. And at some point in their studies, they focus more on Western medicine or focus more on traditional Chinese medicine. But so when for example, there are many surgeries performed in China where the anesthetist, instead of using drugs, they use acupuncture needles.
Oh, wow. So different, isn't it?
Yeah. But but I think we are getting here because, it's like acupuncture is starting to be offered in hospitals here in Australia as well. So I'm very positive that we will see that eventually, this like working together.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I want to talk a little bit more about acupuncture soon, because I know that there's so many different types of acupuncture, and there's many that are given not just with Chinese medicine, but with other fields. And I'm wondering if there's a difference in that. Let's come back to that, because I really want to talk a little bit more about this COVID-19 and how Chinese medicine was used in China, and whether we're sort of implementing some of those strategies for treatment here, or is it just more of the immune boosting stuff here that we can do from the Chinese medicine perspective as a prevention?
Theoretically, we can work in any stage. We can help people in the prevention stage. We can help people while they have COVID-19, and also afterwards to help in the rehabilitation process, in the healing process, in the boosting of the immunity. So unfortunately, we're not going to see anybody with COVID-19 in our clinics. They're going straight to hospital, which, I'm not saying that, please do go to hospital. I'm not saying, don't go. But for example, I've got fellow Chinese medicine practitioner who I spoke to the other day, and her patient had COVID-19, and she's now helping her with the after effects. So she's at home and recovering, but she's like very fatigued, so my friend, who's also a Chinese medicine practitioner, is helping her boost her immunity and just her general well-being and get her back up on her feet. And personally, for me, I've been prescribing a lot of immune boosting formulas in the last few weeks, and there is a protocol that we have received from the Chinese medicine doctors in Wuhan to find out their acupuncture protocols, their moxibustion protocols, and their herbal protocols, what they've used in every stage. And again, it's like traditional Chinese medicine never had to deal with viruses as such. But again, we just look at the signs and symptoms, and we just look, okay, this person has phlegm in the lungs, they have heat in the lungs, they're coughing. So we're just treating all the signs and symptoms, how the person is presenting. And that's how we can kind of help in every stage.
That sounds amazing. And it's interesting if so much as, I'm speaking to you and I'm hearing about the fact that a lot of the cases in China that got treated were treated through Chinese medicine. And then you're sharing just now that there are protocols that have been passed down from Wuhan to the traditional, to the Chinese medicine practitioner community,
yes.
The different, from acupuncture protocols to treatment and, all of those different areas. But I only know that because I'm having this conversation with you. And it's not common knowledge. And I'm wondering if it's being so successful, what's preventing it here from being common knowledge? How come we're not getting media or news or anything that is telling us this? It started in China. They've had cases that have been treated in that way. They've been successful. So how come we don't know this?
Because unfortunately, Chinese medicine over here is still classified as an alternative medicine. Chinese medicine in China is not an alternative medicine. It is just medicine. Over here, even though we are registered with APRA, the Australian Health Registration Board, and we are classified as essential workers at the moment, we are not seen in the same way as the general medical profession, and we are not working in hospitals. If we would be working in hospitals in Australia, then we could use the same protocols as they used in Wuhan, with the herbal medicine, with the acupuncture and other treatment protocols. But, over here, we're working in a different way. We're not working in hospitals. We're working in small clinics. We're working from home. We have, a very different setup in where it is just, I guess, unsafe to be practicing. So it's like there's a lot more regulations, in hospitals where while if somebody comes to your home clinic, you can't, it's much more difficult to prevent the spread of the disease and and put your family and everybody else you're in contact with at risk. So I
understand. So if we then allow the people that are listening to get a little bit more information, if it's not put in the mainstream media, let's broadcast it.
Yes, totally.
So can you tell me about some of these protocols, some of the things that have been working, some of the things that are working for prevention and some of the things that are working for treatment? So maybe we can start with prevention and some of the immune boosting things that people can actually do in their day-to-day lives to help them, not only for obviously the prevention or boosting their immune system for this pandemic or this virus, but also just generally for viruses as well.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to say, like, your immune system is important for so many things. So it's not just for COVID-19, but if your immunity is in great health, then, you won't get anything. So it's fantastic. So keep up your immunity. And people always expect that, some kind of like miracle ingredient or miracle treatment will help. But it's literally the basic things. The most amazing thing you can do to boost your immunity is have a good sleep. So sleeping is really important.
So can I stop there for a second?
Sure.
When we talk about sleep, I'm hearing from a lot of people at this time that they're really disturbed. And whether it's because they're more stressed or more anxious about what's going on, or whether there's other reasons, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But if people are having trouble with their sleep, and sleep is so important, what is something they can do?
I've heard that a lot in clinic as well at the moment. Most patients I'm seeing at the moment, they have sleep issues. I think that there's definitely a collective anxiety, like we're living in a time where everything is uncertain. We don't know what restrictions are going to be there tomorrow, when they're going to be lifted. People have a lot of concerns about their income at the moment. And, we're all in the same boat. We know where those anxieties come from. So there's that element, definitely. Also, I think people are spending a lot more times on screens, and looking at screens is definitely not helpful if you want to try to go to sleep. Listening to the news just before you go to bed, probably not a good idea. So yes, keep informed with the news, but maybe wait to listen to the news first thing in the morning, rather than last thing before you go to bed. And find a routine that works for you, like switching off all devices, not looking at your phone an hour before you go to sleep, using some lavender oil on your pillow, having a warm bath before you go to sleep, meditating, reading a book, and is just anything that...
And is there anything in Chinese medicine or any prescriptive sort of formula that you can suggest that helps with sleep, or is that just not something that you cover?
We do cover, yes, but it's not a prescription. Like I said, like we treat people individually. So there is not one specific, herbal formula. I would say, like, go out and get that one that's good for sleep, because it might be good for your sleep, but not for the next person. But from, and again, just like, with all the things that I just suggest, always speak to your healthcare professional beforehand, because, it might not be appropriate for you to take them. So one of the things you can take is magnesium powder, before you go to sleep. Magnesium is great for helping with sleep. Having a herbal tea with passion flower, lavender, valerian, it's just like any kind of, if you go into your health food shop and they will have kind of like sleepy times teas, or they can make you up a herbal prescription with teas. Chamomile, like all of those beautiful herbs that we're using in, they're Western herbs, they're not Chinese herbs, but they're beautiful for helping you to go to sleep. And but just having those, like the sleep hygiene of not looking at screens, I think is just vital at the moment.
So awesome. So if we go beyond sleep and we look at other
things. So sleep, very important. And again, like with Chinese medicine, we say kind of like it's really important to be in bed by about 10 p.m. So at the moment, I'm managing that easily. It's amazing. It's like I've become such a nana since this COVID-19 started. I'm just like tired by 9:30. So any time you go to sleep before midnight is amazing to boost your qi, boost your yin. So that's kind of really important to nourish and regenerate your body. But yeah, the other things you can do is have a healthy diet. So in Chinese medicine, we don't have, so there isn't a term as such as immunity. When we talk about immunity, we talk about our kidney energy, our spleen and stomach energy, our lung energy, and our what we call wei qi, defensive energy, and the Zheng qi. Sorry about my pronunciation to anybody speaking Chinese. So the Cheng qi is like the upright qi, which helps us to keep healthy, and the wei qi is the defensive qi that stops any kind of external pathogen from entering the body. So we're trying to boost all of that. So the easiest way to boost them is by looking after your digestion, by having warm foods. And it's really true what they say about Chinese medicine practitioners. They always tell you to eat warm foods, and yes, eat warm foods, especially kind of like root vegetables, like, parsnips, sweet potatoes, pumpkins. The spleen and stomach love those foods. They eat like stews and soups. They're easy to digest, and they boost your immunity. If you have any gut issues, take a probiotic, have some fermented foods. Again, like with a probiotic, if see a health practitioner just to make sure it's okay for you. So looking after your gut is a main issue, is a main component in boosting immunity. Also having regular meals. It's not about just what we eat, but also how we eat. Are you eating whilst looking at the screen, whilst reading? Are you eating in a rush? Are you skipping meals? Are you not eating at regular times? All of that will affect your digestion. So,
and is there better ways to do that than others?
Having regular meal times, and while you eat, just focus on your food and don't focus on screens, don't focus on anything else. So the spleen is kind of what we say is the main digestive organ in Chinese medicine. The spleen and stomach are a pair. They are to do with digestion of the foods, but not just the foods, they're also digestion of thoughts. So, and they can't really multitask. So if you're thinking, if you're looking at other things, then your stomach and spleen will be busy digesting your thoughts instead of actually digesting the foods that you're eating at the time. So if you want to really get all the nutrients from your food, then just concentrate on your food, and you also notice that you won't overeat as much.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Because I mean, I know that, I've heard so many times, when we know culturally to sit down at a table and to just focus on the meal and to not have, people talk about no devices at the table and, no television on while you're eating. But I never really realized on a social aspect, I realized the benefit of that. Connective aspect. And obviously, conscious or mindful eating, I understood that, but I never really understood it on a level of that the spleen or would think about your thought, digest your thoughts instead of your food. And that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's another thing I just love about Chinese medicine. We never differentiate the body, the mind, and the emotions and the spirit side of it. So this, like I said, the spleen digestion is to do with food digestion, is with your intellect, with your thoughts, and all the other organ systems are related to other patterns as well, and different moods and emotions. So it's a really beautiful way of looking at your body and your health and your well-being. But coming back to immunity, so with the immunity, other things that you can do is looking after your lungs. So like breathing exercises, doing qigong, doing tai chi, yoga, Pilates. Keep moving, keep exercising, and all of these exercises are really good to de-stress as well. And particularly now, kind of in the society we live in, stress, everybody is stressed. Everybody I see in clinic is stressed. So stress will affect your immunity, because stress affects our health. It will affect everything. So if you find a way of de-stressing by, doing breathing exercises, doing meditation, doing qigong, yoga.
So when you talk about breathing exercises, is there a specific example? I mean, there's so many obviously different types of breathing movement and breathing, like you said, qigong or yoga or tai chi. But is there something you can today, just a really simple breathing exercise that is effective that you could share?
With the breathing exercises, it's literally just kind of being mindful of your breath. So one very simple pranayama exercise from, like the Indian tradition rather than the Chinese tradition is like holding your nostril with a thumb, breathing in, holding, and then breathing out, and then reversing that, and that just makes you aware of your breath. It just gets you to a place of stillness, and so it doesn't really matter what kind of breathing or exercise you do. It's all about the mindfulness and becoming aware of your breath, and getting to a place where you inhale not just in your chest but into your belly as well.
Yeah, perfect. And for those that weren't watching this on the video and they were just watching it on the audio, Leela basically was breathing, holding one nostril and breathing through the other one, and then moving her hand and placing it on the one she breathed in, and then breathing out of the other one, and then reversing.
That's it.
Correct?
That's it.
Just in case
you got it
on the audio.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. So basically, are there any herbs that you can talk about which are, I know you've said a number of times, is specific, and I love that about Chinese medicine, the fact that it is so individualized and that bio-individual model, which is really what I think all medicine should be.
Yeah.
But is there, when you put that aside a little bit, are there some things on the herbal aspect that aren't made in a tincture or anything, but the people can get, whether it's through teas or other ways, that can help with boosting their immunity at this time?
Absolutely. I love my herbs, so I'm happy to talk about herbs for hours. So one of the main herbs that probably a lot of people will have talked about, will have heard about, is huang qi. Huang qi is the Chinese opinion name. We call it astragalus in the West, and it's one of the main immune boosting herbs. But it just does so much more. It's an amazing herb. So it boosts your energy, it boosts your immunity, like I said, but it's for all digestive issues. So any digestive you can think of, from diarrhea, constipation, bloating, nausea, vomiting, anything related to your gastrointestinal tract, huang qi is amazing. It also calms your mind, so it's really good for anxiety and depression. It's great for insomnia in that respect as well, as it calms the mind. There are just so many things that this herb does. Actually, can I just backtrack that for a second? It calms the mind, but it's not really for insomnia.
Okay.
So, so huang qi is amazing for any gastrointestinal issues, immune boosting. It's great for calming the mind. It's incredible herb. It's like what we say, like it raises the yang qi. It just kind of and you can feel it when you take it. You just instantly kind of like feel a little bit of a boost of energy. It's great for fatigue. The thing is, with Chinese herbs in general, we generally don't use them by themselves. So we always use them as part of a formula, as part of a decoction, because we like the synergistic effects of the herbs and how they interact and how they work together. So while I'm talking about, astragalus or huang qi is amazing for immune boosting, and it is, we rarely or ever use it as an individual herb. We always will combine it with something else. And so one of the immune boosting formulas that we have is called Yu Ping Fensan, and it contains only 3 herbs, but one of them is huang qi or astragalus, and it's amazing. And I've been using that formula a lot recently.
What are the other 2?
The other 2 are Bai Chu and Fang Feng. And I don't know the English words for them, unfortunately. I only know the Chinese word for them. And they're 2, two herbs. One of Bai Chu is great for boosting your digestion. It's one of the main digestion herbs. It works with the qi of your gut. And Fang Feng is great to clear out any wind. So when we talk about kind of getting a common cold or getting kind of, like an invasion like COVID-19, even like virus or bacteria, and we call it a wind invasion. So we see that like an external wind is coming and it's trying to penetrate your body, usually through the back of the neck or your head, which are usually parts that are exposed. And then the wind usually brings other pathogens with them, kind of like dryness, dampness, heat, or cold. And so in Chinese medicine, wind is called the spearhead of the 1,000 diseases, because it just can cause so much havoc in the body. So Fang Feng, being the 3rd herb in the formula, is to get rid of the wind.
Wow. So look, it sounds like it's such an involved medicine. I mean, I know that you did so many years of study, and it's so intense and such a difficult medicine to learn. So, I will put some of these, I'll get you to write for me those 3 ingredients. I will put them on the show notes if people want to do their own research and look them up. But what I'm actually getting the feeling of is that it is so complex, it is so bio-individual, and although you can name some of these herbs, it's probably the best message to really get across is that there is so many possibilities of both prevention and treatment methods using Chinese medicine. And so it's if people are hitting a block with some of the more Western medicine, or that they would like to try something different, it's worth going to see a Chinese medicine practitioner and getting yourself assessed personally.
Absolutely, yes. Personal assessment, and even though I say like huang qi is great, if you're on any immunosuppressant drugs, please don't take huang qi or astragalus, because it will have the opposite effect. So that's while I love talking about herbs, I'm also cautious about people running out and getting herbs that may not be beneficial for them. Which I just want to mention another herb, Lingche, or as we probably know it over here more often, reishi mushrooms. Reishi mushrooms are amazing for protecting the body, boosting your immunity. Like huang qi has been shown in various studies to boost the white blood cell count in your body. It helps to combat viral and bacterial infections. It's an amazing herb. Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with reishi mushrooms.
I have
great.
a thing of the medicinal mushroom. I've forgotten the brand that do those medicinal mushrooms, and I bought
Super Feast.
Yeah, Super Feast. And I bought the reishi one. I've only had it once because I didn't like it. But hearing you speak now, I'll make sure bigger effort.
Yeah, like with any herbs, they don't have great taste. But reishi mushrooms, the same. If you're on immunosuppressant drugs, don't take reishi mushrooms because they have the opposite effect. But otherwise, reishi mushrooms are quite safe to take. And you can make a great tea, for example, having a bit of with cardamom and cloves and a bit of reishi mushroom and just cooking it up, and that's a good kind of like immunity tea if you want to brew up something yourself. Now, like especially, like I said, we talk about wind cold and wind heat. So now Melbourne, we're getting into the colder climate. So you want to use more warming herbs like, cardamom and ginger and all of those things just to, keep warm and boost your immunity in that way. Peppermint, spearmint, and all of these things are great as well, but they're more for like hot climates. So, And one of the first thing your grandma always told you when you got sick is like have some ginger tea and ginger and lemon tea. And it's such a simple remedy, but it really works. And when we talk about ginger tea, just don't use just a small amount. Use a good chunk of ginger, make it really hot and spicy. And so it will just kind of like clear out any virus or bacterial infection that's trying to come in.
I think a really good point to clarify also when we talk about tea is I think in the Western cultures, and especially here and probably London or England, when we think of tea, we think of a tea bag or we think of like a specific drink. And I think that a lot of people don't realise that just having hot water with a few herbs or with some garlic, with some ginger and some lemon, that is actually a tea. So I think that people, it's that sometimes the wording that that confuses people because they wouldn't necessarily think that's a tea. That's just hot water with ginger and lemon.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's how it started, like the legend said that this Chinese person was like in a garden and a leaf fell into his hot water, and he started to drink it and discovered that he really liked the taste, and so like that's how kind of tea came into existence as we know it, and you can throw a lot of things into it and just experiment by yourself. Ginger, lemon. It's definitely a good start if you're feeling like you're getting a cold. Honey is great for the throat, and
fantastic. So there's a few ideas for a few people, but I think that one of the biggest points probably to come out of that, and clarity for me as well, is that it is something that with Chinese medicine that you probably do need to see a practitioner and get a much more specific individualized prescription, both for immunity and prevention as well as for treatment.
Absolutely. It's not something, it's like I can show you acupressure points to do at home, but generally, we don't prescribe acupuncture to do at home, and we don't prescribe, anybody just to go out and get their own herbs. We just want to make sure that they get the right ones, and but if you're talking about acupuncture points or acupressure points, if I had to just use one point ever, it's called Susan Lee or stomach 36, and it's just below your knee. And the story is that the point is called 3 Mile Leg Point, and that soldiers in ancient times, they used to massage that point to be able to walk another 3 miles, because it boosts your energy, and it's an incredible point for it's kind of the Huang Chi of acupuncture points.
Where is
so much. I'll show you. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So it is, so if you've got your knee here, it's like 4-finger widths underneath your knee, right next to the tibia.
Okay. So there will be people who are only listening to audio, but
so if you take like 4-finger widths and put those 4 fingers underneath your patella, underneath your knee, and then you find kind of a little bump on your tibia. Usually it's called the tibial tuberosity. Yep. And then a finger width next to that on the outer side of your leg. There's stomach 36. And if you massage it, you probably feel like it's a little bit sore.
Interesting. And I'm sure anyone who's listening today, you can YouTube anything. So I'm sure if you YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Stomach 36.
It will be there.
Stomach 36.
Stomach 36.
Yeah.
Or Susan Lee.
Yeah. Point. So if you do talk just a little bit, we are running a bit short of time, but if we talk a little bit about acupuncture or acupressure, what is that different in Chinese medicine or in, like, I know even physio sometimes do that now. So there's a lot of professionals.
They don't do acupuncture. Physios generally don't do acupuncture. They do dry needling.
That's right. So what's the difference?
Dry needling is very different to acupuncture. So with acupuncture, any acupuncturist will have at least 4 years of studies under their belt. With dry needling, you probably have done a weekend course. Dry needling, people dry needles, they generally don't have an idea of Chinese medicine and the ideas of meridians and acupuncture points and how the points are used or even where to find them. They just work more on the idea of like, okay, I've got pain here, so I'm going to put some needles in that area. So it's like it's more used as an instant muscle relaxant.
Which obviously would have certain benefits as well.
Absolutely, it has benefits for relaxing muscles. But with acupuncture, we are a lot more specific. We use points along the meridians, and I often get, like people coming into the clinic and going, I've got a headache, and why are you putting needles on my feet? And I always like to explain in my treatments a little bit and going, well, we've got the gallbladder meridian, for example, which goes on the side of the head and it goes all the way down to your toe. So if you're getting a headache here on the side of your head, I will usually needle the side of your foot, which corresponds to that area. So it's kind of almost like, like you turn on the light switch and the light comes on over here, and it's the same kind of principle with the acupuncture points.
If I took that, is that for, say, someone who is suffering migraines or headaches, and you do a treatment like that? Is that just to relieve it at that particular time, or can this be used as well, like acupuncture be used for prevention if you are someone who gets a lot of headaches?
It's a bit of both. So with the treatment, if somebody comes in for migraines and headaches, and they get them regularly, the acupuncture will definitely help to resolve it. So like I was mentioning, like with Chinese medicine, it's all about the flow of qi. So if qi is stuck somewhere, it creates pain. By putting acupuncture needles in, it will start the flow of qi again. It will stop stagnation and hence relieve the pain. And then it depends on the individual, like what is their lifestyle like, what can we do to prevent that qi from stagnating again. So that's when we look at kind of like giving them herbs for a little while, for example, looking at meditation or exercise, looking at qigong, looking at ways of, for example, if they're stress headaches, which way, how can we reduce their stress levels so that they don't get headaches, or just simple suggestions like moving their laptop so that they don't get neck ache, and from the neck aches they don't get then the headaches. So it's very practical solutions, but it's also lifestyle and acupuncture and herbs. So it's always a combination, and I love using all of those.
Oh my God, it all sounds amazing. I have to come and see you.
Well, I'm still working, so
I might leave it till after this time. But,
yeah.
Where do you see Chinese medicine heading in the near future?
I would love to see, like I mentioned before, I would love to see the integration of being able to treat in hospitals, being able to work alongside Western medicine doctors, to have a more integrated approach. Being able, it's so much about diet and lifestyle, and it's so important. And I just often find that Western medicine doctors don't pay any attention to that aspect. I mean, now luckily there are more and more integrative doctors who pay attention to diet and lifestyle, but generally there's a really lack of understanding how it affects us. So I would love to see Chinese medicine being integrated further into the general medical system.
Beautiful.
And not just being classified as alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the case. I personally, coming from a health promotion background, would really love to see the integration of loads of different alternative medicines,
yes,
and looking at an individual and not writing off any particular way of prevention or treatment, and what each particular person responds to. I mean, it'd be amazing if we could really, integrate a lot of different practitioners all together to learn from each other. That would be, I also agree that would be an awesome thing to see happen in the future.
I know, and I just always think it's ironic that Hippocrates is cited as, like the father of Western or modern medicine. And what he did is he was prescribing diet and lifestyle advice, basically, which is now classified as alternative, so well, I think it's time we went back to the roots and, used herbs and used all those treatments have been used for thousands of years.
Absolutely. And, all the indigenous treatment, like, that's what was done in China, but we've got a lot of indigenous treatment methods that are used here, which would, be amazing if it was embraced.
Absolutely. And every culture and every country, they have herbs that are used, it's just like in like nettle, lavender, all of those that are seen everywhere. They've got so many medicinal properties. So if we can just use what's in our backyard, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. And I'd imagine, I don't know, but I would imagine that what works in certain countries for certain people won't work in others for certain individuals, because you acclimatise sort of to the environment, I suppose, or evolve to the environment that you're in. So that's why eating in your backyard is probably, I would imagine, a better option, and looking at herbs that are local to the cities that you live in. Yes and no. I totally agree. I totally agree with you that if we could just, live and treat with the herbs that we're using in our backyard, that would be amazing. Saying that the Chinese medicine herbs that we use are pretty much all imported from China. So just because we don't have the facilities to growing them over here. Yeah. But, if that's an option in the future, great. Yeah, brilliant. And, maybe just a combination of, and again, keeping it very individualized to, what is working for that person. Yeah. Wow. So there's so much. And I mean, it's just such a huge field, and there's so many future possibilities in the Western countries to really adopt so many of these ways. So thanks for coming on today and sharing a little bit about Chinese medicine, some of the benefits, some of the things that you currently use, and maybe clarifying some things and giving people maybe a bit of inspiration to, delve a little bit deeper into what we call now in this country an alternative medicine, but is just another form of medicine that has extreme study and extreme experience behind it. So, Yeah, I hope that whoever's listening today can sort of think about, I haven't really explored Chinese medicine maybe before, and it might be something that they can look further into.
Yes, that would be great. I mean, thank you for having me. I always love to talk about Chinese medicine. I hope it makes sense. And I know it's difficult to kind of put 5,000 years of history into kind of like an hour podcast. And it's sometimes difficult to bring across the concept of Chinese medicine because there's just such a vast amount of knowledge and treatments and theories and but if any of your listeners have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer anything that might come up. And
absolutely.
Otherwise, come and see me in clinic.
Perfect. So can you give a little bit more details? Like there's people that might be listening that are local and some that aren't. So that in general, first, have you got an information on, have you got a website or social media platforms that you could share?
So I work at Kundalini House in Fitzroy North and at Alchemy in Thornbury, and my website is shellsandbones.com.au. So you can find me on there. If you're, like further away than Melbourne, then you may want to just check with ACMA, which is the Australian Acupuncture Society, and you can find a practitioner in your area. So you find all the registered practitioners in your area on that page.
Fantastic. And I'll put a link to your website and to your social media sites on the show notes, because I think that, I've seen you share some little tips and some tools and some little, other things throughout time on your socials. So I'll link some of those, because some of the videos that you share and some of the information might be really helpful for other people. So thank you so much for your time today. And if anything that we've shared is something that you want to know more about, just reach out to either of us. You can always go through me and I can forward stuff to Leela. But, if you've had an insight from today or a specific takeaway from this conversation, please do share it in the comments below. Let us know either through the share of this episode on our socials or through iTunes or YouTube. If you have enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and consider subscribing to the Wealthy Living podcast on iTunes and on YouTube. And to find out a little bit more about my services, you can visit my website at wealthyliving.com.au, or you can connect with me on any of my social media channels. So until next time, remember, connection is medicine.